All right, we got update work on the fascia, valence, progress on the lift out, and a couple of new purchases. So as always, let's jump on into it. All right, we'll start in this corner with the two most obvious things. First one is, as you can see, we have this side of the backdrop up. We have the lean on that backdrop fixed. And then in the corner right there, when I did, you can't see it, but there is a piece of 1x2 behind this sheet, behind the long sheet that butts up against the end piece, and it matches the angle of that end piece. So that actually filled the gap back there, and then I sealed it with a bunch of caulk, and that seems to have done it. So that's the same fix I'm going to use eventually for the other side corner on the other side of the peninsula where it's bulging, but that's going to be after June and after the open house tours for the layout during the SEER Regional Convention. And this is, of course, actually a couple of years out, but hopefully that will be all done. And I'll have all the fascia done as well, and maybe some base scenery on here for 2026, because the national convention is coming to Chattanooga. And it would be nice if I could have my layout on tours. Anyways, moving on. So that's the big thing. Huge shout out to mainly Dave, because he's done a lot of this work. Also, Mike D and some other guys, but thanks to them, like I said, we have this up. We have the valence all the way around, basically the entire layout at this point. There are two pieces left to cut. One for right there, one for right there. But that's all basically done. And then fascia work from that corner down all the way around. I went ahead and curved this piece myself, and I got it all the way down to there. And then on the left side, as you can see also, we have this bit of fascia right here. So we did this piece and this piece first, and the main goal for that was so I could get the lift out started. So I was hoping to have at least backdrop, valence, and if I was really lucky, have all the fascia done by the time June gets here for the regional convention. I don't think that's going to happen, which I kind of knew in the back of my mind. So I'm kind of like, I'll settle for having all the backdrop blue and the valence black, and having the train room real nice and neat and cleaned up and tidied up, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm good with that. Also, because when you get over to this side of the fascia, yeah, I need another support underneath that 1x2, so I have a little bit of a gap for push buttons and toggles, but also another brace for the fascia. And then really before I put the fascia up over here, this piece is going to stay the width. I really kind of want to have the support structure over top of the staging yard for the Fremo modules in place, because I want the fascia to come over here, widen out really big to match the profile for the scenery right here. Come up, viewport, and then you get over here, and I have to have it real wide here where the lift out is. So, and then of course I have to have fascia for the slide out, and that's got to be cut to the profile board, which means that sub-row bed has to be trimmed. It's more work than I think I'm going to have done in time for the show. So I think I'm going to settle for valence and backdrop. If all the valence and backdrop looks, like this, I'm just now realizing on the video you can actually see the top right there. I got to add another strip of hardboard up there. Yeah, I'm gonna have to fix that for future videos. Anyways, yeah, I was kind of afraid I'd need that in a couple spots. I should have put that up higher. Oh well. Anyways, I figure if at least I have the backdrop blue and I have this, all the valence black, that's good enough that it looks presentable and not quite completely bare bones raw. It looks it gives a little bit of a half ass decent look to it, which is better than nothing for a regional convention to have it on tour. So, anyways, we did that. Like I said, the lift out I've been working on. So originally, this is built. The frame is built the same way as the modules. All this is glued and screwed together. You can see I have hardboard on the ends that has been cut to the terrain profile, roughly, which I meant this angle piece to be right about here, to be underneath the sub-row bed. I mount the risers off of that, and then all the rest of this would be fine. Well, I put it in the middle thinking, yeah, I'll be lined up, glued and screwed it, and then it dried, and like, oh, crud. So, yes, I did muck it up, and I had to figure out how I was going to fix it. So, I ended up putting this leftover piece of 3/4 plywood on here. No, excuse me, this is 1/2 inch. Sorry about that 1/2 inch. So I did that, and of course, the main reason I needed something solid was for mounting the risers and sub-row bed. So the big old gap right here is going to be I forget what the name is, but it's basically one of the box girder with the track on top. Probably microengineering kits, and the kits will be, modified, the ends set at however many degrees you need for the number of pieces and all that to bridge this gap on a 24 radius. Then of course the other thing is I'm basically going to take a bunch of the cork and track on either side of both of these seams, mainly this side, not so much over here because it's good, but redo the cork and just redo all of it. So like I said, that piece where I have it custom right there is either going to get moved up or replaced with a new custom modded piece of Code A3. Obviously, I need to fill in the gap between the layout fascia and the wood all through here. Although, the nice thing of it is you can see how small the gap is between the left out fascia and the layout fascia. So, this is not hard to slide in, but it's not like loosey-goosey drop-in smooth either. There's a tiny bit of friction. And of course, you can really see that on this side where I've got the thinner hardboard on the left, which goes to lift out, the thicker on the right, which goes to layout, and there's basically no gaps. So it's going to look real nice. And then, of course, on the ends here, I'll have, more hardboard cut to the terrain profile. But I'm not quite worried about that right now. The main things, backdrop, valence, and I want to get the main line running. This is the last major section that I need to do to accomplish that. Everything else already runs. It's good to go. I just need to get this done. So I'm probably going to just temporarily throw some scraps of foam in here enough to get the track across and call it a day. And then after the convention, come back and actually do the bridge and stack and carve foam and all that stuff. And get it fitted in. Also, just side note, at this point, basically from here over is essentially permanent. It's not glued and screwed. I mean, it's not glued, it's just screwed, but for all intents and purposes, I'm treating it as permanent. The rest of this, at this point on the peninsula at least, all that over there, all this over here, it was built permanent. It can come apart. I did make allotments for that, but it's meant to be permanent. These all have the Core 20 bolts in them underneath. I kept that when I reworked the module support structure. So these can come out, and all the track has gaps. The hardboard has gaps in the correct places. Everything's screwed. I mean, none of this is glued, so, it will work. But it comes apart if I have to move. situation. Otherwise, I'm just going to probably do a large part of the scenery in place. So, in any event, that's the majority of the main work. Like I said, been focusing on backdrop, valence, and I really wanted to get that over there done so I could start working on the lift out so I could get the main line running again to get ready in time for June. Because honestly, that's the main focus on the back of my mind. Couple of new items. Starting on the left, one thing I'm really excited to show y'all is the brand new panel for Haydenville, Ohio. So the crack on it right there was not the guy that made it. That was me. I didn't have it braced right. But in any event, this is the panel. So believe it or not, this was only, $10. This guy is a local guy. Technically, he makes trophies, but he's been doing laser engraving and cutting like this for 40 years. Mom and pop business. I did a rough draft, showed it to him, went back, got actual measurements on everything. He basically scanned this in, ran it up, printed it out. So this shows you everything on it. Again, this is for Haydenville, Ohio, which is, again, that whole back wall. So that slot right there is actually where this panel goes. You have an opening for a plug port. This is going to be for analog because the Monday Creek branch is going to be dual mode capable. And I do have a couple reasons for that. I actually have some analog engines. Some other people have analog engines. And I want a place to test analog engines before I convert them for myself or other people. And every once in a very rare blue moon, we might use the branch in analog mode during an operating session. So I do have contingencies planned, insulated spots, very specific things with the wiring to keep the analog and the digital from crossing and keep the operator from accidentally running across the gap, and stuff like that. So I do have contingencies built in. But anyways, this shows you all the information. So you have your DC analog plug port. You have a master toggle from switching from DC to DCC and vice versa on the branch. Of course, the town has all the documentation, right? So again, geographically, you're looking south. You have east up on the left. You have west on the right. So you always know which way is which. You've got the Tame Noun. Good Lord. Town name. You've got all labels on here, so it literally shows you where the Monday Creek branch is, where the house track is, what's the main, what's the siding, where the depot is, the name of the road crossing, where Haydenville fireproofing is. And also, if you look, we have turnout numbers. So there's the number for the crossover, which you will be able to either plug into your Digitrax throttle, your phone app, whichever one is appropriate for Android or iPhone, whichever you're running, and line the turnout via the LNY. Or, of course, via the, and I'll grab one and show you, via the custom switch plates I had made. If you do it this way, which when we're running in-period op sessions will be the way I actually want people to do it. Take your key switch, plug it in, unlock the turnout, the light turns on to show that it's actually unlocked, and then you flip your toggle switch, do what you need to do, return it to closed position, and lock your turnout. Now, in actuality, that's just, basically this is a key switch that's in line with the circuit that goes to the rest of the panel. So you're basically cutting a circuit, whatever. Of course, what that simulates on a CTC railroad is the crew taking the padlock off the local turnout, flipping a lever on the machine that actually unlocks the circuitry and allows you to flip it manually, doing what you need to do, closing it back to main, and then putting the padlock back on the turnout, and therefore putting it back under dispatcher only control. So that's the first one. Obviously, I need some more. I need one for Haydenville. I'm going to need one for the engine terminal, one for the staging yard, which is going to go right there, and that will have more toggles on it. On-off toggles for each of these tracks, LEDs to show occupancy because this will be covered. One for the panel. For the engine terminal, obviously I'm going to also have to have one for the branch. You know, if nothing else, at least the same thing as this with the name and information on it, etc., etc. And then, of course, the individual plates scattered around the layout where the controlled turnouts are. So, and that's just an extra, so that way you don't have to have the dispatcher on. If you want to just run it with the throttles, you know, and run it through the throttles of your phone when we're running just for fun, you know what the numbers are, you can go ahead and do it. So that's the first new thing. Second new thing, I did go ahead and pick up an airbox car at a recent show. If I can get this to actually show what it is. William Lake Erie. This is an older air mountain kit, so it already has their 33-inch metal wheels. It has separate stirrup steps, which 2 of the 4 are broke off. And of course, you've got all these separately applied roof walk, ladders on the ends, all that good stuff. I do not believe I have any William and Lake Erie box cars. And it's not unreasonable that it would have shown up on the Hawking because both railroads did run into Toledo, Ohio, so, you know, I figure. And, of course, William and Lake Erie is one of the other, it's in the 50s major Ohio railroads, so, you know, reasonable that it would come across each other. Third thing, this just recently came in. I found a older PSX AR off of eBay. So for those of you who don't know, and I'll do a plug for these real quick. This is why I recommend the Tony's Train, not Tony's Train Change. Oh, he sells them. What's the manufacturer? DCC Specialties. Thank you, Brain. I remembered. But real brief plug for these. So the difference between these brand of boards and a lot of the other circuit auto reverser boards. If you notice the relays, these are all solid state relays. What that means is if you run multiple sound locomotives and you turn the layout on, say you have, I'm assuming, you know, you have your engine tracks, staging tracks normally off when you're not running them, but you still have, you know, a couple consists, so 5 or 6 engines with sounded curves. You turn on the layout to power up. This board will be able to tell the difference between the capacitors charging and an actual short. The older boards that were relay based and not solid state, they would take the power surge, interpret it as an electrical short, and shut the power off. So the older Digitrax AR1s, a lot of the old circuit breakers will do that. These don't. Now, they have since come out with the PSX X ARs, which same company, just newer version, some extra features, also about $20 more. Now, either one, I don't care the price, these things are worth it. I put 8 of these in at Nolan's, both the regular circuit breakers and a couple of the PSX ARs before they upgraded them and released the newer versions. These things have never busted. You look at the reviews, there aren't that many, but that's because all the reviews, people get these things and they run for years. People send the reviews and it'll be insane amounts like, oh, I've had mine running for 5 years, 10 years, no issues. So these things are just the bee's knees. I love these boards. I would recommend these to anybody. They are completely worth the price. So all the other ports, just so y'all know, that's all the extra features. So like all these boards, the circuit breakers and auto reversers, you can put on, you can solder on these screw terminals and can do a whole bunch of stuff. So These are actually have CVs on them. You can actually program CVs on these over the track bus. Use ops mode on the main programming to program these things. And these CVs adjust trip rate, current, all that other stuff. You can even set them up to where they'll automatically throw a turnout. They have inputs for detection on them. They have output to tie into LocoNet to send block detection into your LocoNet, which that's one thing I will be using because the reversing section is a signal block by itself. It has to be. So those are 3 things I picked up. I actually have a Digitrax BXPA1. This is not necessarily anything wrong with Digitrax. This is a gripe I have. I cannot get the firmware update. And I do not like the fact that Digitrax came out with this new stuff, which is fine. What I don't like is that all of a sudden you have to upgrade firmware on it. Honestly, in my mind, one of the main benefits of Digitrax was you didn't have to upgrade the firmware. You got out of the box, you hooked it into LocoNet, and it just worked. You didn't have to go back in and touch it aside from maybe basic settings, switch addresses, or stuff like that. You didn't have to update the firmware. In other words, firmware is out of date. Oh, now the device won't work and it won't communicate with anything else. You didn't have to worry about that. The newest command stations and accessories, you have to update the firmware. And same thing, I got a PR4. It will not connect to JMRI. It blocks LocoNet, gives me errors. I can't figure it out. Now, again, that's not necessarily anything against Digitrax. I have that gripe with them, yeah. But also, I ain't much of a tech nerd. So, somebody else that is, it's probably going to get it. And it's just going to be like, boom, it works. But either way, for me, for this layout, it doesn't. So I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm not going to be buying Digitrax stuff that requires firmware updates. That's just the way it is. I am going to try getting the newest DCS52 because one of the guys at the club has that. He had it at the Birmingham show, and literally he plugged the computer in, and it did it. He didn't have to have a loco buffer or any of their interfaces. He literally plugged it into the DCS52, which when I redo the closet and move dispatcher in there and redo my whole programming track setup, I'm thinking I might be able to make it work with the DCS52 as my interface instead of having to run it through a loco buffer or something like that. So I'll try that down the road. For now, I need the auto reversing section working again for June, and because it's an auto reverser section, so I got that to put in. Not too much else. The other tiny little bit of stuff I've done, I have decided to swap the roundhouses. This was actually up at Nolan's, so he had this in a box. I do have all the missing parts for it. I'm pretty sure, I thought this was a Walthers kit at first. I'm thinking it might be a Helgen kit that somebody else has assembled. They did a good job with it. Obviously, I would like, would be a really nice hit, but I would like to be able to get the roof off to add freaking, inspection pits and lighting and all that cool stuff inside. As you may notice, I did have to actually bump the layout out. I can still reach stuff. It's not like I'm not going to be able to get to it. So I still have access all the way around. And of course, if I, duck underneath the valence, I can get into all the corners. I just have to watch my head. So I still have access. That does also mean I don't have that standing space, which really would have helped with people distribution. But if I stagger operator positions, and I've already kind of laid this out and actually checked it by walking it, I think it's still going to work. So that's what's going on with that. 3 more cars I got to a workshop, so just minor things. A little bit of coupler sag on one, a little bit of extra weight on the others. Swapped out plastic wheels for metal. Auto rack is there because I was using it to test clearance going around the roundhouse. And then Challenger progress update, I set it aside for a while because I got pretty frustrated with it. The headlight was not coming on. Got that fixed. Number board worked. Now the number board won't come on. I'm just going to leave it. And I want to move on and get this project done. So, going to change the harness out next. And then, as you can see, the speakers are gone. But that is because I'm putting 2 scale sound system speakers in this thing. One in the tender, where the dual round speakers were before. And then I'm moving one, hopefully, up to right about there, which, if you look at the shell, is right underneath the smokestack. And for those of you who would find this interesting, and I have to mention what's in the box underneath too, because that's it. This is a Lionel from 2003. So they did a very brief run in 2003 of the Challengers. They did the Clinchfield, the Rio Grandes, and the Union Pacific with both the two-tone gray and the black, and the coal and oil burner versions on the Union Pacific. About 3 different road numbers, I think, for UP, and then a Clinchfield road number and a Rio Grande road number. These things are a beast. This will pull my 16-car passenger train, counting head-end equipment, with each of the passenger cars weighing about 7 ounces, so a quarter over NMRA, quarter and a half over recommended weight. It will pull this thing up a 2% grade from staging through 3 right-hand curves and a U-turn without missing a hitch. This thing pulls like a tank. It is literally completely metal. I think maybe there's, 6 plastic parts in this thing. Obviously, the worm gear covers, maybe some of the linkage down here. On it, but honestly, I think that's about it. This is the thing. All the detail on this is completely metal. And this thing, like I said, this pulls like a tank. So, if you can find them, they are worth it. They have old QSI sound in it, so at some point it will need a sound upgrade. This has Tsunami 2 in it, but this is one of those rare steam engines, articulated steam engines, that will actually pull. And I think that makes it worth the price. So, anyways, that is pretty much about the gist of it. We do have the Gadsden train show coming up. I was going to actually take my modules. I found an electrical gremlin in it, so I got to go back and fix that. But I do plan on taking the full passenger train consist down. Unfortunately, I'm not taking this beautiful piece of machinery. My homemade harness is wide enough that I'm either going to have to take a Dremel and make the opening wider, which I don't really want to, because it'll make the harness more obvious. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to replace the harness with one of those 10-pin ones that Soundtrack sells. Because right now the issue is this is thick enough that this thing won't actually go around a 24 radius curve. And that's the curves that are on the modules for our modular layout. So, probably going to take the passenger train and the Alco FAs to pull it instead. Anyways, that is going to do it. This update is pretty much for the end of March, beginning of April. One last thing real quick on a side note. This weekend, April 4th through the 6th, for those of you who don't know, I am a little bit of a shooting sports person, and I have gone full tilt off the deep end and gotten into airsoft. I've wanted to get into it for about 5 years. I didn't have a field near me, or money, or time, or a field. Yeah, any of the main 3 things. So I kind of can't do it without that. We got down here. One of the old fields that 3 years ago was paintball. It had been turned into a haunted walkthrough attraction. A local couple bought it about a year ago, and they added paintball and airsoft back to it, and it has been Doomsday has taken off. We had 120 people out there a couple Saturdays ago. Just like that's literally just walk-on players on a Saturday. 120 people. We had some nice games for that. So I jumped into that. I use it a lot as training too. So I'm hitting up one of those and I'm really, really excited. One of these days, I am going to do a video where I show off my kit. So basically, that's all the gear I use for the airsoft and how it looks all together. So, it's me in full kit, as the saying goes. That will be a one-off video. I'm not going to turn this into an airsoft channel. This is still a trains channel, but I'm sure there are some of you out there who enjoy things that go bang, to put it in a way that the YouTube algorithm will let pass. So I figure some of you would probably like to see that video. But it's, like I said, I'm not going to turn into an airsoft channel. This is literally just going to be a, hey, I thought you enjoy this, one and done video. So a little side note on that. Anyways, that is probably going to do it for this update. Again, a decent amount of stuff. A lot of it is kind of like wiring. The backdrop looks real good for the finished product. And by the way, you can see this in the video in person. That's about where my eyeball rests. So I'm not actually seeing it when I look, and you are on the camera. Anyways, most of the stuff has been backdrop. So it looks real good like this at the end, but there's a lot of filling holes with mud and sanding and putting some more drywall mud and sanding some more, and have to do that 3 or 4 times. And then, of course, trim in the white, 1 or 2 coats of white primer with trim work in between each coat. And then trim everything out with a brush for the blue and then roll on the blue. So it's a lot of prep work and about 3 different layers of paint plus a lot of trim painting between each layer and everything. So tedious. Result looks good, but the process to get there is a little tedious. Although, again, even without the blue on it, this side of the layout, the backdrop and valence just make so much of a difference. It's amazing. So anyways, that's going to do it. Y'all know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you actually get notified when I upload videos, so the algorithm will pass them on. As always, everybody take care. God bless. And I'll see you on the next video.